Step 1 is the prerequisite. Go to the Spotlight and type in terminal. That will open up the terminal window. In terminal window, we want to check the version of Node and npm. So type in node minus vflag to get the version of Node. We got version 12.17.0 and we need at least version 8.16.0. It's the same with npm. Do npm minus the vflag. We got version 6.14.4 and we need at least version 5.2 for npx. So we're good there. Now we can use npx and we're going to use the create React app template project so we can be up and running quickly. So type in npx create React app and our project name hello React, and then that's going to download the template project from GitHub as well as the dependency that the project rely on in order to get it running. If the installation went successful in step 2, we're going to get a message that says happy hacking, which we just got. The version of create React app is at version 6.13.4. So change directory to hello React and you can see the project, and then type in npm and then the create React app to check the version just to see what version you have so you can compare it with mine. I got 6.14.4, as you can see here. You may get a different version because they keep updating it. Step 3, what we want to do is we just want to run the project just to see that it's running correctly. So all we have to do is type in npm start and we're going to see the following message that the scripts are running and it's going to open up a local server that was created for us and it's going to be running on a port 3000. And if everything went well, you're going to see a message, our landing page. And by the way, if you want to stop this process, just go to terminal and type in Control-C. But here we go, bravo, we got our landing page and we're ready to step 4, which will be to implement changes. We're just going to do something simple for a vote of confidence. I'm going to open up the app.js, that's the entry point to our project. On the landing page, learn React. And I'm just going to change it from learn React to I am a React developer. This is just a vote of confidence just to see that our live development environment is running correctly, because when I save the file, I don't even need to refresh the page. The change is going to get applied automatically. So if I go back into the web browser, the changes were made automatically. I didn't have to do anything. They just, because we're running a live environment on a local server using the scripts that are provided to us with this project. For the first feature, we're going to create our main component where we're going to put content in our app we're building, and we're going to show the app version instead of the vanilla page provided by default. So I'm going to create a new folder and I'm going to call it main, and inside I'm going to create another file. I'm going to call it main.css. That's going to be our CSS file. In the CSS file, I'm just going to do something simple. I'm going to create a class, call it main, put a border with a 2-pixel solid gray border. This way we can see the main page that we're creating. We're going to align the text to the center, putting a padding for 20% because I want to occupy 20% of the screen, and I'm going to put a margins of 10 pixel. We don't want it to start right from the corner. We want a little, margins. Then I'm going to create another file. I'm going to call it main.js. So again, go to the main folder and create a new file, call it main.js. And for the main.js, our project comes with ES6 out of the box. And we can use either functions or classes. I will show you both. We first need to import the React library as well as the CSS file we just created. So do import React from the React project and import the main CSS file we just created. We're going to pass a function property called vars. So that property that we can pass from our app entry point indicate that our app version number. Then we just return GSX code with our style and our version number. So inside the code, what we do is we have to implement that. So the way we implement it, we create the vars that we're going to pass here, and we're going to return. This is JSX code, which is similar to HTML. We're just going to create a div, and we're going to point the class name to the CSS class name we created. And then we're just going to, inside the div, what we want to do is we just want to put the version number. This way, when we're updating our app, we can keep up changing the version number so we can see which version is uploaded to our environment. And so what we do is we're just going to use binding. So we're using the bracket to bind the variable version number inside of our div. And then all we have to do when we're done is just export the default main function so we can use it. And that's all that it is. Now notice that our function returns JSX. This is the template language. It's similar to HTML, but it tells React how to create our component on the front end. Now that we have our main class ready, so the app usually needs to have menus and navigation. We can split that part as it will be needed for each page. So to do so, just create a new folder, call it header, and inside of header, we're also going to put two files. We're going to put the same header CSS, just like we did in main, and the header JS file. So first, let's start from CSS. Even though our CSS is going to be very similar to the one we have in main CSS, we want to split them. It's just good practice, programming practice. This way, when we make changes, we won't have a kitchen sink with one CSS holding everything. So I just copy paste the same main CSS file. I'm going to change it to header, and the only changes I'm going to make here, instead of 20% for the padding, I'm going to use 20 pixel. So our header is going to be smaller. So it's still going to be a gray background, but it's going to be smaller. Then go back to the header folder and create a new file, call it header.js. And for that component, we're going to use both the React library as well as the component library. So we want to import statement that will reflect that. So on the code level, just type in the React and the component that we're going to be importing into this JS file. And the component library, it's going to allow us, the component library, to use the classes utilizing the ES6, which is really part of the ECMA 262 standard. And class provides us a much simpler and clearer syntax to create object, to deal with inheritance and align with other top programming languages, really making JavaScript rocks. So our code will be more readable and can be used by other developers. It's just better practice. So we're going to create a class called header, and what we're going to do we're going to expand the component that we imported, constructor. You can see it comes out of the box with a property. I'm going to delete that, we're not going to get into that now, but you can pass the property. But what we want to do on the code level is we just want to set the state. So our state is going to be the bun name. So what we're going to do, we're going to switch between buns. Our bun is going to switch from login to log out. So our default state is going to be login. So we're just specifying the current state. That's in the constructor. So when the class starts, it sets our current state. Then the next thing we want to do is we want to create the renderer, just like what we did with the function. That's the JSX code. That's what we're returning. That's the front-end implementation that we're returning. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a div again, and inside the div we're going to set it with the class name of the header we created. That's our CSS, and we want to put a bun. So we're going to put a bun tag, and we're going to give it an on-click event. And once the user click that bun, what we want to do is we want to change the state. What we're going to do is we're going to change the state from login to log out. So I'm going to do an on-click event, and I'm going to point it to a function called change state. I don't have that function yet, but we'll create it and change it once we do that. But for now, what we're going to do is we're just going to point that inside the bun, that's going to be the bun name. It's going to be, again, we're using the bracket to get binding, and we're going to use the state and the bun name. So that's how the name is going to change magically, automatically using binding. And then the next thing we need to do, the last thing we need to do is just like we did before, we have to export our default header. So do export default header. That will make our class available once we import it from another class. So that's necessary. And now we're ready to create our click event. So for the click event, we said we're going to call it change state. And what that function is going to do is we're going to set the name. So if the name of the state is login, we're going to change it, the state, to log out. And if it's log out, we're going to change it to login. So I'm just going to put a statement here that if the state band name equal login, change it, the state name, which the band name, to log out. Otherwise, set it as login. And then what we want to do is we want to commit those changes by calling the set state. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this, which point to this class, and then we're going to do set the state, and we're going to pass in the band names with the new band names that we just assigned. So if it was login, it's going to be log out, and if it was log out, it's going to be login. That's all that it is. This is a simple, really, way to set the state. I have other tutorial that shows more advanced way how we can manipulate and use the state with other ways, but for now we want to keep it simple. Then on the click event, what we want to do is we want to point to that function. So point to this, meaning this class, and then point to our function, which is change state. Now we're not passing any variables, so we don't need any brackets. And then in the constructor, we need to bind it, the change state, to our class change state. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this change state equal this change state dot bind, because we need to bind it to our class. Otherwise, it won't recognize it. It won't know where to go. Okay, so that's all that it is. Now, what we have is we have both of our components ready, right? We have the change state inside of the main. We have the header. Inside the header, inside the main, we have the version that we're passing. So we're ready to see it. In order to see it, what we're going to do is we're just going to go to the app.js file. Inside there's the return, which what we're going to do is we're going to assign one div to hold the entire app, which we already had. And then we're going to put a tag for the header. That will put our header. And we're going to put another tag for the main, and we're going to pass our version number, which is version 1. And that's all that it is. Now, if you save the file, you don't need to refresh the browser. You can just go to the browser, and the version will get updated, and the header should show. So if we don't have any errors, if we go back to our browser, you see, the changes are already there. Now take a look at the header. We have that band. Once we click it, it keeps switching between login and logout. So state is being changed using the function that we created. That's it.